Welcome to our latest user's guide, and this is the McLaren P1. Part of the Holy Trinity, as they're affectionately known, this sits alongside the Porsche 918 and the LaFerrari and was McLaren's answer to the hypercar at that time when they were launched. Just 375 units were built, making it the rarest of the three, and it was a tour de force in terms of technology. The other cars still being relatively basic, although both with hybrid like this car. It was completely ahead of its time in terms of the amount of technology that was pulled into the car to make it much more like a Formula One car in terms of push-to-pass, low drag systems, active ride height suspension, and the way in which the hybrid technology was harnessed. It has a twin-turbo V8 with approximately 720 brake horsepower and 720 Newton meters of torque. And the hybrid technology, which is a 175 horsepower motor on its own, taking total power up to over 900 horsepower, is used in a slightly different way to others, whereby it's used in a torque fill situation. And the main aim of that is to speed the engine up to try and reduce turbo lag and make the engine much more responsive, being a twin turbo. The other thing that I think is really super cool about this car is the carbon monocage. This, at the time of production, was the lightest monocoque or chassis frame of any car of its type at just 90 kilograms, and incorporated the whole driver's safety cell, the rear lower quarters, the engine cradle, the roof snorkel. It was a super comprehensive item, and it was made up of carbon fiber that in places was stronger than titanium, which is an incredible achievement from something that is effectively a fiber. Another key point to this car was that from its Formula One relationship with Akebono, the braking technology company in Japan, this was the first road car to feature the new technology that had been developed and derived from that F1 technology, which meant that the braking system was way ahead of any of its counterparts. The discs are incredibly strong. They have a very effective technology and design so that they can dissipate heat far more easily, and they actually operate to a much higher operating window, making the car and its braking system much better in high speed and track environments than its counterparts to the 918 and the LaFerrari. Such is the technology in this car, this user's guide is going to be a little bit watered down to be much more of a living with the car guide as opposed to using everything. Otherwise, we literally would be here all day long. So we want to talk through the basics and the essentials of this car. And first of all, as you'll see, the car is sitting in race mode at the moment, which is where the rear wing is totally extended and the car is sitting really low, mean and squat, ready for some track attack. Not totally ideal for the road, not recommended for the road, but boy does it look good in the garage like this. So I think you'll agree that most people would like to leave their car sitting like this. The technology and the system inside, there are various processes to raise the ride height so that the wing detracts and the car sits at a normal ride height. And then again, we can raise it one step further to give you better road clearance. So that's a system that we'll run through. We've also got to run through how we take the car on and off charge. And actually, quirkiness of this car, we've got to work out how we approach it from cold and how we leave it when it's hot. Those two things are quite important because if you upset the rhythm of how you go about getting in and out of the car, it can leave you in a bit of trouble in terms of alarms going off, things not working properly. It's very much a process-driven car, much like the race car technology it's derived from. So let's crack on and go through those things. So, approaching the car, my first piece of advice, treat it as if you're always coming to the car as if it's locked in a car park. So you'll see we've pre-prepared the car, the mirrors are turned in, and therefore it's locked. I've got the key here, has 3 buttons on it at the top, it has lock, it has unlock in the middle, and it has opening the front at the bottom. So I press the middle button to unlock it, and we hear it unlock. No lights come on at this stage. Inside the door air intake, there are 2 buttons. One has a concave indented nature to it, and the other one has a convex dome shape to it. So the dome-shaped one is lock, and the concave one is unlock. So if I press that button, it opens the door for me, the mirrors open, the door windows drop slightly, and I can open the door. For the minute, I'm just going to leave this closed because I want to show you the battery, how we put it on and off of charge. So before we get in, the car's obviously been on charge in your garage, so you need to disconnect the charger. First of all, I'm just going to quickly turn it off at the wall. Then I lift this panel, and in here we have the full charger point. This adapter here has a rotate and twist, so the red dots are lined up. I turn it anti-clockwise, and at that point, I can actually remove the plug from its position, put this on the floor, and I put the cover back on, which is exactly the same. The red dot needs to line up with the indent. You push it in, twist, and rotate clockwise so the red dots line up like that. And then we close the cover, and it's a push to close like that. Obviously, when the car is locked, that panel will lock as well. So now we're ready to get into the car. But before we do that, let's do the system in reverse in terms of how we put the car on charge. So the car has to be unlocked, and we press on the panel here, and it opens up. I need to remove the plug cover. Then I get the lead. I'm careful not to let it bounce on the bodywork. Obviously very useful to have this cover on your lead. And again, the red dot needs to line up with the indent. We push it in all the way and then rotate this so it's nice and tight. There we go. And then you can just put the cover down like that so it sits like that, or leave it up as you like. In terms of turning on the charger, if you come round, so I've got to turn it on at the wall. On the main lead here, we have an on and off button. So we turn it on here. Then on this power unit itself, we have this big button, which we press. It goes orange, and eventually it goes green. And so this green nature here shows that we are cooking on gas and that everything's okay. And now we've got a green light here for the charging. We've got a flashing green light for the battery being charged. So we're happy that everything's in order, and we're happy to leave it like this. Okay, so we're going to get in the car. I've actually got the key in my pocket. Clamber in like that. The door has a handle here. Be careful not to let it slam down, so I'd let it get to about this height. So it's open about a foot, and then we let it drop closed. The window goes up automatically. In order to start the car, we have to have our seatbelts on already. So that's the first thing we've got to do. You've got to press the brake really hard, and then you've got your start engine button here. It's telling me that we're in race mode, it's suitable for track use. So press and hold race to accept, which is here. So we're in race mode, and I want to take it out of race mode to go into a normal driving position to go along the road. So I press active, and then I have to hold race to deactivate. So I press and hold it, and now I have to wait 30 seconds. It tells me on the screen that I've got a countdown going from 30 down to 0 seconds, and it tells me what's going on front and rear. So we're now in normal mode. In order to go back to race mode, to drop the car, to lift that rear spoiler, I've got to be in the normal mode. So I press the active button so that next to neutral, I have M. I have to have the handbrake on, so this red light has to be illuminated, and we'll come back to that in a minute. I press and hold race. Then this comes up, race mode selected. Race mode is only suitable for track use, etc., etc. And at the bottom it says, press and hold race to accept, or active to cancel. So I press and hold race. Then it starts its process. I can now let go. Now it's started. It's showing me that the rear spoiler is coming up. It's showing me the front ride height, or the ride height in general, is coming down. So on the left-hand side, I can see the ride height reducing, and at the rear, I can see the spoiler is rising. And I wait until the countdown finishes before I do anything. I've got to keep my foot on the brake, keep the engine running. It's got to be parking brake engaged, and we're good to go. And if I want to cancel that mode again, so I press active, and then I have to press and hold race, and the process goes in reverse, and we're going back to normal ride height, normal wing lower height. Naturally, whilst we're here, probably the best thing to talk about next is lifting the height of the car because of, say, a big speed bump. Bottom left stalk, we can press the button on the end, and that brings up the menu on the left. And in orange, it shows you where you are on the menu. So you can go up and down with the stalk until you get to where you want to go to. So we've got home, settings, vehicle info, language, trip, vehicle lift. So when we're on vehicle lift in orange, we pull the stalk towards us, and now we're in vehicle lift. And with that, if I want to vehicle lift, then I take the stalk and I push it up, and the car starts to raise. That takes a little bit of time, and if I want to do that in reverse, then obviously I'm still in the menu. I can do the vehicle drop by just getting the stalk and pushing it down. Focusing on the center console, we know that the start-stop button is at the top for the engine. We've got E mode, so if we press E mode, the car can run up to relatively decent speeds in electric, depleting the battery, of course, not for too long, but it's also got a party trick that if whilst we're in park, I can rev up the electric motor, so you can hear it turning the engine over effectively. Below this, we've got the iris system, which in itself is a user's guide, and I think on the internet you'll be able to find that. If we switch below that, then here we have our sort of track-focused or tweaking of the car systems. The active button is what selects all of this. So as standard, the car is in fully automatic mode in terms of gearbox. It's as standard in some functional suspension settings, etc. But if we press the active button once, obviously we've got to have the engine running. So if we press the active button once, all of these light up. So in active, this center of this right-hand button, we can flick between being manual and automatic. So if we press it and the light goes off, we're in automatic. If we press it and it's in manual, it's manual, so that it is down to you to change gear. Changing gear is much like a normal paddle shift car. Down paddle on the left, up paddle on the right. And the left one is for the aero, so that you can flick between different aero settings. Now, at the bottom here, we have our general driving characteristics in terms of, we've got a hazard light button in the middle. This is your electric parking brake, so push it away from you. The brake goes off and the light goes out at the same time. Pull it towards you, and our parking brake is back on. So if we turn the parking brake off, we want to go into drive, we just press and hold D, and on the dash we see 1, and I'm ready to go. It's beeping at me because the door's open, of course, for you. And then in first, we simply pull away like a normal semi-automatic car. In the middle here, we have the N button, so that puts it in neutral if you hold it, and just behind it, you've got the reverse button to go into reverse. Now, if we put the car back in neutral, we've got two other buttons on either side here. This one here opens the frunk, and this one here is to lock all the doors whilst you're inside. Moving to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, so on the left-hand side, we've got at the top, located on the door itself, again, another rotary knob, which it's sitting in A at the moment, which is automatic for the lights, but we can put the car on number 1, which is side lights only, or 2, headlights, or all the way anti-clockwise, we can turn it to 0 so the lights aren't on at all. Now back into auto mode, that's where we'll leave it, and if we press the middle button, that turns on the rear fog light. Below that is our electric mirrors, so rotate the knob to the left, and then you can play with the mirrors by moving the joystick around and about, and if you rotate the knob to the center, it's locked, and to the right, it's for the passenger mirror. So that's that there. On the driver's door itself, we have the 2 window buttons. So to put the windows down and up, we have those. And to open the door, we pull this lever, which is very similar to the handbrake lever. So put it away from you, the window drops, and you can open the door like that. So we have our iris display here, which is touchscreen, remember. So if we press the middle button, it turns it on. If we rotate the dial, this is for volume for the stereo, and then everything is touch dial. So the 2 most important things really are media. So you can go into media, select radio, take control of the radio, work out what you want to do. This is all very straightforward. So FM auto. Okay. And then if we come out of that, the next important thing is climate control. So we press the big fan looking button, which is climate control, and you've got your temperature adjustment here on the left. In terms of fan speed at the bottom, flick it left and right. Your different settings here, so AC on is when it's illuminated orange. You can put the heated windscreen on if you like, turn that off. So you've got all your different settings. Recirculation, do you want the air to go to the screen? If it's orange, it's on. If you want it in the middle, you put the middle on, or if you want it to your feet. Very intuitive, that is. And then you can always come out of that menu, go back to audio source, press return again, come back to here, use your navigation, and all of this is very intuitive. You just got to remember that it's touchscreen. Now, looking at the dash, on the left-hand side, you've got your odometer, you've got the electricity range, which at the moment is showing 6 miles. And of course your fuel range, which at the moment is 29 miles. If we look at the right-hand side, we've got oil temperature at the top, water temperature down there, battery temperature, which is sitting at about a quarter right now, battery charge, which is nearly full on this car at the moment, and fuel level, which is nearly empty, showing nearly empty on the low bars. On the top of the display, you've got your different rev counter, so it goes from left to right. When you're in race mode, the displays change, so different modes have different displays, but you've got your speed digitally on there, you've got your gear digitally on there, and it's, again, very informative. It's very much like a McLaren race car. It tells you as much as you need to know. So, to open the front of the car, the frunk, we've got three options. We've got the button on the key, we've got a button in the center console next to the reverse button, or we have a button on the underside of the door here next to the transport button. So I'm going to press this one. Sometimes the car might have gone to sleep, so you need to press unlock again to get it back up to life again. And to save you rummaging in under the front here trying to find the button, it's actually in the front here, not on the front clam itself, but in the nostril, there's a button. So in the nostril just here, there's a button you press here that helps you open it. And in the front, you've got a small storage compartment. You can put your charger in its bag and it goes in here. And then you have a little bit of space for other stuff. We've got a cover for the charger at the moment in there. We've got windscreen washer fluid here. We've got power steering fluid there. And we've got brake fluid here. Final two notes on the car, fuel and oil. So the oil dry sump tank, the access to it is inside the charger flap on the passenger side. But to fill the car up with fuel, we have an identical system, pop-up panel on the driver's side, which within you'll find the fuel filler cap. And there you have it. That's our user's guide to the P1. It's the essentials. It's how to access the car, making sure you keep it awake, how you get the car into race mode, how you play with the lift settings, putting the car between manual and automatic, a basic air conditioning and radio function talk through and guide, and the essentials of the P1. There is so much more to this car, and I recommend any owner to have a good flick through the user's manual. But like all these things, using the car is how you really get to know it. And this is a car that deserves to be used.